they have the sponge done or working on the sponge currently. I'll come and check in just a second. Yes, ma'am? Yesterday in class, the sponge, we talked about a monsoon climate. That was your exit slip, so you should have a description of it written down. For my 1, 2, 3 people that weren't here yesterday, write down I wasn't here yesterday, and we'll talk about it here during the sponge, but then also write down the answer as well, as we discussed it. Yes, sir. You can take like that. Yes, sir. Thanks, Mr. Shipper. So, first off, before we discuss how a monsoon climate affects South and Southeast Asia, let's remember what a monsoon climate is. So who can help us out figuring out what a monsoon climate is? Jada.
A monsoon climate is very hot all year, rains part of the year, and monsoon winds come from all and
Okay, you're close. That's pretty good. And you talked about rain and a non-rainy season. I'd like to tweak it just a little bit, okay? Tweak it just a little bit, and Neiman, can you help us out with that?
A monsoon climate might be a wind.
Okay, monsoon climate is not necessarily just wind. Monsoons are just the wind. We're hitting all the different pieces together, okay? Demaya, you can put it all together for us?
Yes. It's when the seasons change because of the direction the wind is blowing, and I don't remember. I think when it's blowing from the south, then it's hot and rainy, and when it's blowing from the north, it's cold and dry.
Okay, yes, absolutely. So that's what a monsoon. The monsoons are the winds. The monsoon climate, when the winds are blowing from the south, it's hot and wet. When the winds are blowing from the north, it's cooler and dry. All right. So how do you think a monsoon climate is going to affect South and Southeast Asia? How do you think it's, especially in reference to our learning target with human activities? We'll talk about that in a second.
In the spring, it is hot and dry, therefore they cannot grow plants very well in that season. In the summer, it is wet and warm, so people can grow plants.
Excellent. So you have a growing season when it's rainy, and the rainy season is the growing season. Perfect. Anybody else? Think of something.
That's what I meant.
That's what you're going to say? I knew.
Oh, wait.
Jada?
Maybe the livestock will die because it's so hot.
Okay, it's possible. It's possible. It's not actually. I see where you're coming from. It's probably not going to happen, but I do see where you're coming from on that, Tyler. You forgot what you were going to say. All right. Well, part of this. This is kind of a prediction. We touched on it briefly yesterday. We're going to think about it much more deeply today because our learning target is I can use special purpose maps to describe how the physical features of monsoon Asia affect human activities. And so what we're going to be doing today is using maps from the textbook in order to help us learn how those physical features we talked about yesterday are going to affect human activities. So, open up your textbooks. Let's look at our first map on page 588. First map on page 588. We're going to do our first activity, which is reviewing the maps a little bit before we get into the actual mapping part. Open up the textbooks at 588. And what's the title of that map? Remember our parts to the map. Title, Tristan. Say it again. Physical features of monsoon Asia. Okay? So what do you think this map is going to tell us about? Well, you're right. It's going to tell us about monsoon Asia. It's going to tell us, Lily? The physical features, right? And what kind of physical features do you think it's going to talk about? Kayla? Okay, mountains. What else did you say? Plains. Cedillo?
Elevation.
Okay, yes, it will tell us about elevation, right? Is there a symbol for elevation?
Yes, you know.
What part of the map is going to tell us where symbols are?
The key.
Shout out.
Sorry.
Okay, Jalen. So, is there a symbol to tell us elevation?
Yes.
Okay, what is that symbol? Well, okay, what specifically is the symbol in the key?
What?
The color, absolutely, the color. So the redder it is, the higher it is, the, what is it, yellow it is, the greener it is, the lower the elevation, okay? So that's something to keep in mind. All right, so that's our physical features map on page 588. So when we're doing the mapping activity, if it talks about physical features, this is the map to look at. Okay, page 589. What's the title of that map? Gabby. Political boundaries. Now, what do you think we would use a political boundary map, a political map of monsoon Asia to find out? Tyler.
The borders of the states.
Okay, so if we were to ask, you're right, the borders of the states, if we were to ask what countries, you're absolutely right, if what country a particular physical feature is in, that's the map we're going to look at. Now flip over to page 592. Madison, what's the title of that map? Population density of monsoon Asia. Who can give me a definition of population density? Population density. Nick.
Isn't it how many people are living in
Okay, how many people live in a certain area? Usually like square miles or square kilometers. Absolutely, okay? So, which one is more crowded? A higher population density or a lower population density? Amy? Higher, absolutely, okay? So, and what color is higher population density on the map?
Purple.
The highest color population density. Cody? Purple, all right, okay. So we did ask a question about how densely populated or how many people live in a certain area. Population density map is going to be your key. Economic activity map, from page 593. What kinds of things? There's two types of things that this map is going to tell us. Katie, can you tell me one type of thing this map is going to tell us?
land use.
Land use. And what are some examples of land use?
Substance farming.
Farming. Subsistence farming, you said. What else?
Little or no activity.
Okay, little or no activity. What's the other major thing that this map tells us? Hey,
Resources.
sorry again?
Resources.
Resources. And what do we mean by resources exactly? Say again?
Things that we grow.
Okay, it can be the types of things that we grow, absolutely. It's not limited to that, though. Anybody else have an example, Sophie, for resources? Okay, coal, yeah, absolutely. Tristan? Okay, now is that a resource or is that a land use? Alright, so we got to be careful because sometimes they'll ask for what resources are there, and sometimes they're going to ask for how the land is used. So a resource would be iron, nomadic herding would be land use. And how does the key tell us the difference between those two things, Donald?
Like they have different colors for, like they have different symbols for each.
Okay, what are those symbols? I mean, so land use has its symbols. What are those symbols?
Like for coal, it has two people. For subsistence farming, it has like a yellow color.
Okay, so for land use, it's colors, and for resources, it's symbols. All right, and that's something that has tripped us up in the past. So I wanted to highlight that. Land use is colors. Resources are symbols. Any questions on that? All right, well, what I've done is I've printed out a series of questions, and I've given that to you, and it looks like this right here, and it has Mapping Monsoon Asia worksheet at the top. I'm going to show you a series of images, and there's 11 total questions on here. I'd like to spend about 3 minutes on each question. And you're going to use the maps that I have listed up on the board in order to answer these questions. You can work with your elbow partners for that 3 minutes. Then we'll break out for about a minute and answer the questions. All right, are there any questions about what we're doing before we get started? Tristan, you don't have an elbow partner. Let's see here. Cody, would you like to come over and work with Tristan today? And Sadio and Katie, if you all would like to work together. Katie, you can move back to Sadio. If you'd prefer to work alone, all right, so any other questions before we get started? Nima. Yeah, so there's questions on this sheet. There's questions on the sheet. All right, 11 questions, 1A, 1B, 1C, etc., all the way through 8, and then we'll start over with 1 through 3. All right, you're going to use the 4 maps that we talked about to answer the questions on the sheet. And up here I'm going to have some images that go along with the questions so that you get a sense of what's going on. And then after the 3 minutes of answering those questions on that piece of paper, then we'll discuss them as a class. That makes sense now? Anybody else? All right, so number 1, here's the picture that goes along with it. You can read the questions and start working. We'll give you 3 minutes to get you those answers. Look at
Oh, use the maps.
Yeah, use the maps to answer the question. Use the maps to answer the question. Should we do the first one together so you get an example? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So here a bridge crosses, so you can see the bridge in the background. Here a bridge crosses the lower part of a river which flows from the plateau of Tibet to the Yellow Sea. Which river is it? So your first question you need to ask yourself, which map do I need to look on? So if we're talking about rivers, what map do we need to use? Nima. Physical features map. So go ahead and locate the physical features map and find the plateau of Tibet is what I would use, and to see which one flows out to the Yellow Sea, and then write down the name of that river. Plateau of Tibet. And you see the Yellow Sea. So which one flows out to the Yellow Sea?